Hey everybody, this is Grace, and in this video I want to talk about something I have wanted to talk about a few times, and each time I would go on and talk about something else. But anyway, it's about, I had an appointment with a nutritionist. You know, I asked her, I said, what's the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian? And she said, she started to say it, and I think something happened and she switched. But she started off with saying, anybody can call themselves a nutritionist. The problem is, she said, but that we, as in nutritionists and dietitians, she said, we use those interchangeably. And she didn't finish what she was going to say. I'm guessing, I don't know, but anybody can call themselves anything. That's like in counseling. They say that some people want to call themselves counselors when they're not, and it's actually illegal. But they say anybody can put up a what do they call it? Plaque, but that doesn't make it legal or something. I don't remember. But yeah, you don't do stuff, you don't claim to be something you're not. Anyway, I don't know what to think about this, because I'm on this kick now these days. It's been, I don't know, a year or two, I don't know how many years, of making, bringing up things that just keep changing. I just turned 62 earlier this month. It's June. Today is Friday the 13th in June. Yeah, Friday the 13th. But, so I turned 62 earlier this year. And it's like, so many things have changed in my lifetime. It's just so surprising. And I'm not talking about, the way people dressed or something like that. No. I'm talking, bigger things like this one. I don't know. Some people might not think it's a bigger thing, but grammar. Seriously, the meaning behind certain words, the way you form a sentence. And I'm not talking about the people who, text a lot and they fail to use punctuation marks and periods, and punctuation marks and capital, uppercase, capital letters. Let somebody know that's a new sentence. I had one from a nurse practitioner. Oh my goodness, that it was so not at all in any way, shape, form, or fashion professional. It was so bad. It was long too. No periods, no capital letters. I did not know there was nothing to say when one sentence ended, the other one began. And then she accidentally apparently hit the period at the end of it and made half a sentence. Oh my goodness. She's the only person in that office that doesn't understand me. I think she's texting other people. I really did get this really weird vibe that when I'm on the phone with her, she's texting because she's so distracted. Like maybe she takes that break and she goes to call, but she's got her cell phone in her other hand texting. You know what I'm saying? I just got an image. But anyway, all these things that are different like that. What a nurse is different. A nurse was what was then, when I was young, when I was a child. A nurse was then what today isn't even really like a PA, a physician's assistant. Maybe more closer to not really an MA either. Because back then, a nurse was always with the doctor. Okay, she did not, it was always she, by the way. When I was a child, never saw a male nurse until, I don't know how old I was. But the nurses were always she. The people working at staff, always female. I don't know, maybe it was just where I was, but I don't know. No matter where I went, hospital, whatever. But anyway, she was always with the doctor, and the doctors were always male. Yeah, I can't tell you how old I was when I first saw first female doctor, seriously. And it was a big deal back then, too. You know, like, oh, you got a female doctor? It was like they want to whisper it, you know? It was something so unusual. And in my lifetime, some people, some young people these days, that maybe they wouldn't even know that that was such a big deal, or they wouldn't even know that, you know, mental health. If somebody went to a, you know, a psychiatrist or something, that was a hush-hush topic. And you can see that on Happy Days, that show of Happy Days. But it went on from there. It wasn't just in the 50s. I think the Happy Days was 50s, or was it early 60s? Something like that. Maybe all. But yeah, you know, these things have evolved, have changed. And nowadays, you know, people talk about their life coaches. There was no such thing that I had ever heard of back then, life coach. It wasn't until the 1980s that I had heard of life coaches, and it was kind of like a joke. Seriously. There were people who were doing it, but it was very rare. I mean, extremely. And like I said, it wasn't until the 80s. And I was working, you know, I was a student working on degrees in psychology and sociology, and studying to be a counselor, worked on a PhD, all this kind of stuff, to become a counselor. I'm a little distracted by something here. Okay, anyway, it was a delivery. But, let's see. You know, so many things have changed, and that includes, like when I was in, I was a student. It was back in the 1980s at university. I think it was in the 1980s. Fairly certain. I saw a nutritionist at the university. She was an employee, okay, at the university. And she told me how much food I could eat. Well, it was meat. She focused on meat. And I looked at her and I said, what? Seriously. I said, what? And it was so little. I'm not going to say what, because what they are, I am not in any way, shape, form, or fashion a medical nutritionist, anything in medical, not at all. You know, not any kind of voice of authority. So anything I would say could be very wrong. So I don't want to tell anybody anything. But I told this nutritionist that I had an appointment with recently about what that nutritionist said. She goes, oh, we have moved on from there. What was funny was I told her how much protein I had heard another time in my life. And she said, that's actually the example we give people about fat. And I did not tell her. It was in a publication from a very well-known, well-trusted organization. Maybe it was just a typo. And what they meant was fat when they said protein, because I remember reading it more than once going, what? There's no way. How little protein they were saying a woman, it was geared, I believe, toward women back then. And I had been put on so many diets in my life. And I told her about the diets. And now I do have a rare health condition, so it's different for me too because of that. And so I told her about all those, and she was like, no, it's definitely changed. Okay, and it did. It really has changed when she started to tell me about it. However, one part of it, I told her, I said, wait a minute. She was telling me, I said, well, I remember that. That goes back. And I said, I can't remember the name of the book, but it was a diet that was very popular back in the 1990s. And I just can't remember the name of it. And I had bought the book. I think I had bought two of the books. And it was, I was living in California, and I had an endocrinologist and an internal medicine doctor. And both of them, I think they knew one another, or somehow, I can't remember. They got together for this because of the rare health condition, and they decided I should follow this diet. And because when this woman, this nutritionist, fast forward to this year, just recently, when she said that diet, I said, that's exactly what that diet was about. And she said, really? I said, yeah. I said, I just can't remember the name. I remember it now. I looked it up online and saw it on Amazon. I want to order, and I think I'm going to, because it would give little meals and such. But that's from the 1990s. Anyway, she was saying, well, I'm glad that there's information out there that people know about it. And I got the feeling like she may have thought that she made it up. Or that it's something new in this generation that they made it up. This diet. No. It's been around for a long time. And I kept thinking, I've followed that since then. Well, since I talked about it with her. I didn't say all that stuff to her, but I had it in my mind, and she said, to follow that, and what she had told me. Like I said, she didn't invent it. It's from the 1990s. And so I started, paying more attention. I'm like, how did I get so off from there? Because I thought I was still following it. But no, I'm not doing it. I'm doing it, but not exactly at the right time. I'm not, like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail. So, but it's good now that I got, getting back on track, and I want to get those 2 books. I'm going to order them from Amazon and go from there. Okay, so that was one of those. No, that hasn't changed. It's just been renamed or reclaimed or so. Not reclaimed, but it would be, somebody else is trying to claim it. But no, it's been around. And I doubt that was the first time was back in the 1990s, so yeah. I remember watching a show. Oh, what was it? I think it was called, no, what was it? I think it was The Outlander. I can't watch that show. I kept trying more than once, that series. It just pulls too much on my empathy. Yeah, I like to watch it every once in a while, but yeah. Anyway, but one of them was about, I don't know why, or was it that show? It was something about diabetics, okay, diabetes, and it was, back then, I don't know, and it may have been something back then too. I am leaving so much out, it's not making sense. But anyway, so, some of the stuff, it's just changed around. That was just an example. I mean, I've seen other things too. Like somebody just thought that, I had experienced that when I was a student back then. I was a career student for over 20 years. But back then, like I would come up with some thought. I said, oh, and I'd start adding stuff together. Okay, like, I'd be reading something. I would read something, and then I would start thinking, and my brain would go off, down some line. Say, oh, if this happened and this happened, then bound, and it'd come up with some kind of a, I don't know what I would call it, but and then I'd read it. But some people would say, of course, but it was like I was creating it myself, but then there it was in the book by somebody, 50 years ago or something like that, or even more than that. So anyway, but a lot of stuff does change, but it's really just changing it around a little bit, like the grammar thing. I remember my first English grammar what do they call it back then? English grammar? English language usage, I think, back then. And it was a college. I had actually moved to a different state and took some classes at a college there before I moved again. But it was English, and it was, how was it? Like you say, this, and you put a comma, that, comma, and the other, okay? You know, but then when I was at, I said, really? You put a comma before the and? And they said, yeah. Okay, I said, well, that's changed. And they said, yeah, it did change. And then years later, I took a what would you call it? It was a graduate course. And a lot of us did a graduate course in English. And we were wanting to, see the changes that had come about and get some direction. But it was taught by 2 MAs, and all they did was have us write papers, and they corrected them. No, we were livid. Those of us paying graduate level course cost too. And then this is what we were getting. But the professor walked in one day and he said, this is it. This is how you do it. Before any and, if, wait, how did he put it? And, or, but, and he went down the line. He said, you put a comma, the word just before it, every time. And he told the class that, and he was a young guy too, not young. I'd say he was probably 35 to 40 years old or something, maybe in his 40s. Now, yes, at my age, I'm seeing that as young. Not then, but anyway. And we were all, the students, those of us, we were livid. It was like, this is not what we're paying for. He just came in, said a few things, and left, and that was it. Then his his GAs, did I say wrong earlier? His graduate assistants took over. And he had 2. Must be nice, but still, it was like, we were wanting to learn, and there's so many things that changed. But also, like, I remember in the book, I think he may have pointed it out, when you use the word W-E-R-E. Okay, W-E-R-E. And if it has an F or a this or that, it's probably all changed. But I'm saying a lot, so much stuff changes. It changes, and then it changes back. You see, so, yeah. Anyway, why am I on this topic? I did want to mention that about going to the, seeing a nutritionist, but I'm a little afraid that what I'm hearing is not, and this is not my first time to hear something like this, but, because I knew this guy, he's a real large guy. I'm talking maybe 500 pounds or so. I really don't know. But he was big. A big guy. And he told me that his personal trainer, which I did not know that personal trainers, I don't go to gyms, but personal trainers, apparently, Adam says maybe they do that. They're nutritionists also. Maybe that's what that nutritionist was talking about, that anybody calls themselves that, but no, as far as a dietitian, I don't know where she was headed. Kind of do, but anyway, I can only guess. But he told him the amount of calories he could eat a day. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this guy, and he's big, like I said. I said, he told you that much? I mean, I don't know. I have never, ever heard a doctor or anybody say that was a lot. And then something I had read, like I say, I don't want to give details because I'm not a voice of authority on any of this. I've read a lot over the years, but I'm not a voice of authority. So, and also within the same era, same time in my life, I had read about how many calories a person should eat and all this. And it was more than what I was told earlier in my life. And I kept being put on diets that were, whoa, they just wouldn't do them nowadays. But also, I was learned somewhere how they calculated this stuff, or how some were calculating how many calories a person could eat. You know, like I say, they keep changing stuff. They, who are they? Exactly. Whomever it is at that point in time that thinks that maybe they're credentialed enough to be the gurus, the voices of authority. I don't know. That's not my area. But when I read it, I was like, okay, that's a lot. You know, that's a lot more than I had ever been told, and ever for anybody before. And I thought that guy that I knew, he may have been being told, and by the calculations and all that, he may have been told that's what he eats to maintain the weight he was, like 500 pounds. That must be about the calories he ate a day. But his mind turned it around to where, I can eat a little less and I'll lose weight. You know, like 100 less calories. You see what I'm saying? He never lost weight, as far as I know. I don't know. He moved or something. I don't know what happened to him. So, I didn't know him that very long, so, yes, it was. But I've heard more than one person who was, you know, obese. I remember there were different levels of obesity too, you know, but say things that were, no, I don't think that's how they said it. I would just doubt it in my head. But this one guy, it just floored me. It was so high. What he was saying, his personal trainer was telling him he could eat. And my thought was, since when do personal trainers tell people how much they can eat? You know, are they dietitians, or are they legal, or are they credentialed, or are they... My brain goes through all that because, yeah, there's some situations I could mention. You know, people get hurt listening to people who are not, you know, and taking, you know, and thinking these people are putting out as though they're somebody and they're not. Yeah, I do not put out that I'm somebody I'm not. So I say flat out, don't listen to me. I don't know. I'm not a voice of authority on that. So, but anyway. Okay, but I do want to see if this helps me. In my brain, I'm still kind of old school about it. And I'm a little frustrated these days because, you know, I went to the ER hospital, at one of the hospital specialties. And back in March, March? And I learned that I was having heart failure. I don't know how you term it. Am having, still have a problem. But I don't really. But it's the weight problem that had. Also, there was the sudden, not truly sudden, like it didn't just happen yesterday, you know, but sudden, like over months, maybe a year, I don't know, weight gain. And it was like, I hadn't gained it before. Why am I all of a sudden now? And I don't think it was anything hormonal or anything. There was a weird, one of the doctors actually said, it's another rare health condition. But nobody fixed it. I mean, it doesn't happen, it hasn't happened this year at least. But nobody told me. It happened last, I think it was Labor Day, or right after Labor Day. So it hasn't happened since then. And I still don't know what caused anything. None of these, however many times I had to go to the ER and everything, 2 years, 2023 and 2024, none of them knew anything. It was weird. But there was this weight gain. And, but there was the weight gain, and I was losing weight really good. All of a sudden it started picking up, and I was losing weight finally again and all this. and then it just stopped. And this, I'd say it stopped maybe a week or two ago, something like that. I would say probably 2 weeks. And it started coming back on. I'm like, I am not eating more. And then I try to tell myself, well, what is it that I could be eating that has more sodium and all this? So, I'm thinking in these terms, and with this nutritionist, I finally got one, a dietitian nutritionist. Finally, after all these years, I've been asking, and it's going to be so so. How do you put it? Just laid back. It's not like you need to watch this and you shouldn't eat that. Instead, she wrote down what I like to eat, and I guess she's going to make a plan. I think she got my email wrong. It happens a lot, because she said she was going to send me some stuff through the email for me to read and all that when she got it together, and I never got it. And I don't have her email address, so, and I don't even think that I think she works out of her home, and that would not surprise me. And I don't think she has any staff. I think it's her, period, just her. And I think that's one of the reasons so many of these have such a hard time, because there are not that many nutritionists / dietitians around here, as I've learned over the years. So, surprising, isn't it? It is, to me, surprising. Why not, Okay, I think I've said enough for this on this video. I kind of went all over like I usually do, which I'm fine with. I'm glad. I'm happy with the way I am, man. At some point in life, really, but I have been for a while. This is my way of journaling. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I have more to say about it in another day, but right now I'm still like, I don't know. It was only one visit. Maybe after that, that was just the initial one. After that, maybe we'll get to something deeper, but I'll see. I'll talk to you on another video. Bye.